I have a review of Masters of the Universe Revelation Part D. But before I do get into my review, please consider this your spoiler warning because I will be talking spoiler-ish. So let's get on to the review of this yet again disappointing ending to Kevin Smith's vision. So if you saw the first part, you already know the abundance of negative reviews. Fans were split and pinned against each other. You either loved it, you either hated it, you either hated that how it added the lore, or you loved how it added the lore. There was no in between. I hardly saw anyone saying, yeah, you know what, it was okay. It was either really, really bad or really, really good. For me, it was all sorts of bad. And even when I did my first review of part 1, I did a second video trying to justify what Kevin Smith's vision was for the women in Masters of the Universe Revelation and how they were more muscular than your normal average. And I was like saying, hey, you know what, for a woman that's wielding around a sword that big, she has to have some kind of upper body muscle, and try to defend them in a way. It was received lukewarmly, but this part 2 went completely overboard. And by any powers that be, please keep Kevin away from any further properties that are already established and trying to do. Now, I am not opposed to having a certain section of the population acknowledged, displayed, if you will, in movies, in cinemas, in music, but how anyone didn't see Evil Lyn from the LGBTQ community and didn't feel not represented, felt exploited, and felt like the image that they put out there for the LGBT community was the wrong one. So first off, and this was just all bad. I really enjoyed the first part way more than this last part. This last part of the second part felt incoherent. It felt all over the place. It felt too nuanced. Like they were like, oh, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do all these things, and then shuffle it into this 5-episode ending. Honestly, it didn't work. You had parts of Flashpoint from DC. You had parts of Batman when Skeletor saved Evil Lyn. I was like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here? You had elements of Marvel's Infinity War and Endgame in this. It's like Kevin Smith just said, oh, I watched all these movies. Let me put them in mine. Let me adapt a bunch of stuff and let me put them in this. I don't know why I started sounding like Bane all of a sudden, but he just grabbed a bunch of stuff, didn't think we would notice, and added it to his own animation and been like, oh yeah, it's going to work because it's been all over. So I'm just, paying homage to these other properties. But you can't do that. You can't take other properties' ideas that they've already done and put it in yours and expect us to believe it or be like, wow, this is unique. It feels recycled. At least to me, it felt recycled. It's too many ideas, too much going on just for the overarching message. And I've said it in my defense video of Kevin Smith. Go check it out if you have it. It's back in my channel, where I say, hey, if you want to tell a side story about Teela, then have it be that. Have it be a side story to it, but don't minimize all these other characters like He-Man and the ones that we grew up with in the 90s, right? And the last episode, it tries to be like this fan service episode, but it's too little too late. You went through the whole thing, and in the ending of the last one, of the first part, you kill off 2 of our favorite characters of the He-Man universe to try to then make it up at the very last second and give us just 15 minutes of fan service was a slap in the face to everyone. I don't care what side of the aisle, just if you're a fan of He-Man, it was just a slap in the face. My biggest problem with the second part is Evil Lyn. Again, Teela and the story with her, it's whatever. And we'll get a little bit into why, after this point, I'll get into why I was bothered with Teela's arc. But Evil Lyn is the major part of it, and just the stereotype that they put out as far as for the LGBTQ community. Now she was already ripped, buffed out in the first part. But when she gets, and spoiler warning, when she gets the power, she not only gets huge, like she's on sauce, right? Evil Lyn gets all like juiced up, and that was one of the notes for episode 3. She just gets swolled up, right? But then she goes from long hair to like this stereotypical lesbian short hair with drag makeup. And the first thing I thought, wow, if I wasn't a lesbian, I mean, I'm not, but if I was part of that community, I would feel upset. I have family members, my sister that is a lesbian. I have friends that are lesbians, and none of them have that kind of short hairstyle. None of them do their makeup like that. So who are you representing? And she's like steroid out of her freaking mind. Like, what was the point? You could have kept her the same body size as before, which even that was the 1% of fucking females that get in that type of physical conditioning. But yet now you have to buff her up into a super manly body type, which then you're gonna piss off people that are being like. And I hate this new trend where if we're pissing off someone, then we must be doing something right. No, you're doing everything wrong, because again, you're not realizing. Just take a look at the LGBT community. Why do they have to be all butch? And when she like hit, what was it, when He-Man and Evil Lyn were fighting and he like has the sword and it hits, oh, I have a bigger one. What is that? That's like you're hitting at the lowest common denominator and hitting the lowest bar possible in some kind of righteous humor that I didn't understand why that needed to happen. And her stereotype, the way they portrayed her, I'm not surprised where Netflix didn't even want to didn't advertise this second part. I didn't even know it was out until I saw something on TikTok, and I'm like, is the second part already out? And sure enough, I go on Netflix, I Google, and there it is. It comes up. Nothing. It in trend. It's been buried by Netflix, and with good reason, because this second part is garbage. And everyone, whether you're straight, gay, LGBT, whatever, you should be offended. If you're a fanboy or fangirl, this second part, you should be offended, because it was just this, I want to call it something just really offensive, but it's not even worth it. It's just garbage. So let me get off that Evil Lyn thing, because I just thought it was very poorly done, and Kevin should be ashamed of what he did, and everyone that put Evil Lyn together should be ashamed of what their idea of a lesbian or a strong woman is, because they completely missed the boat on it. Going to Teela again, I understand the arc that you want to focus on Teela, but when at the end she, her mom tells her, obviously she her mom Teela realizes who her mom was, and they're at the end in episode 5 when there's lake where she has to like unite, and then Teela was like, oh no, I don't have to do this now, I don't have to let go of the people. The whole point is that her mom made this sacrifice to give up her child, Teela in this instance, to separate from her husband, to be able to keep the universe intact. But Teela goes against it, and because she's such a strong-willed woman, she could break the rules and she could make her own rules. No. If you want to do that, go do it with a brand new property. Brand new a project. Don't take an existing property with an existing lore and then try to change it. She had to give up. She had to sacrifice her life with He-Man, or with all of them, with her friends, everyone who she met. She had to sacrifice to make it worth it, to give that character more depth. All of a sudden it's like, oh no, I'm gonna do my own rules, I'm gonna be this boss ass woman, and I don't have to succumb to tradition, to the lore, which again, it works in every other thing, not in something already established, to push your narrative, whatever that may be, down the throat. And that bothered me. I don't care that she's a boss bitch and stuff like that, but I care that she is in this universe with the lore already established, and then cheapens what her mom did for the sake of what? For the sake of Kevin Smith getting off in some kind of righteous freaking chest pump. Get over yourself. So this movie was just all over the place. and it was just a miss. And like I said earlier, I understand why Netflix freaking buried this thing and you had to search it. And just to give you a rundown, I wrote everything per episode. So, and I'll end it with this. This is what I wrote for the 5 episodes, each episode at a time. Episode 1, confusing. The way everything went down after what we saw in part 5 of the first part, or episode 5 of the first part, this just became so freaking confusing in episode 1. Episode 2, so Prince Adam basically turns into the Hulk. That all he does when he says, "Oh, I wonder what would happen if I call on the power." Or he was telling Skeletor, like, hey, you don't need the sword, that's just a conduit, it's when you speak the words, and he speaks it. So then I'm thinking, then does anyone get to say those words and be able to like turn into this mindless Hulk version of He-Man? They're like, oh, it's an unbridled power. Oh, enough. You again messing with the lore. No, we didn't even know about this, and then all of a sudden this becomes part of the just ruining what He-Man is supposed to be. Episode 3 is basically Evil Lyn gets on the juice, basically sterols up, and it all goes downhill from there. Episode 4 is an exposition dump. It's just a bunch of blah 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 blah, bunch of setup for episode 5, which is so freaking corny. And I just wrote, so it was about Teela, very corny. And everyone already knew that it was about Teela from part 1. And again, I said I didn't mind it. I didn't understand why he decided to approach it that way, where I even did a video trying to defend him. And that's basically it. What I thought it was just a jumble up mess, not worth following. You're just gonna get upset. Yes, we get our fan service in episode 5 for 15 minutes, but it felt like Infinity War and Endgame. So I hope Kevin does not get to reboot anything or put his hands on anything. If Hollywood is listening, just say no to Kevin Smith. But anyways, those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And like always, keep Kevin Smith away from established properties. And that's a wrap.